What is up, NSG community? It is Sunday, and so on Sundays, come hella high water, I committed to going on live and just sharing with you guys some of the challenges and grateful moments that I have experienced over the last week. I have committed to listening and celebrating with you guys through your grateful moments, as well as providing support in your moments where you felt challenged. And right now, in this current moment, I'm going through a bit of a challenge. I'm going through a bit of a challenging moment. Relationships are being reevaluated, and I didn't think we were at the point to where certain things needed reevaluation. And at the same time, yet I'm still here. So, not one to deny situations. I'm more about working through it. In this very same space, I also had an amazing day. I had an amazing self-care, rejuvenating day, which was so timely because at the end of that beautiful moment, several hours that I gave myself, I walk into this state of reevaluation. And so it kind of thrown me a little bit off. It's the challenges that I wouldn't want the outcome to be, a full on breakup or having things end, and yet if it is, then so be it. If it's God's will, right? I'm the thing that I pray about is, God, whatever's for me, bring it to my space, and whatever's not for me, to take it out. And so that thing, when you ask for things to be removed, you got to be ready for it to be things that you may not have wanted gone. And if it's not for you, then the removal of it from your life is only going to allow more room for good. Here's the other thing about that, right? As I'm saying this out loud, I'm also thinking about a moment in this to be grateful, in that if the thing that God is moving from my life, I didn't even feel like I wanted it moved. I didn't see anything wrong with it for me to say, hey, let it go, or enough wrong with it, no matter what it is, right? If I didn't see anything wrong, or in some cases, if I didn't see enough wrong with it for me to say, hey, let it go, then that means that whatever God is replacing it with is going to be that and more. So if you had something that you liked, if you had a relationship with someone that you enjoyed, and that season is gone, know that all of the seeds that situation, partnership, relationship planted is there, and it's growing, and you're only expanding your territory and your capacity for more. And in that moment, I'm grateful that no matter what comes of this challenge that I'm right now in real time going through, that whatever rests for me is only better. I mentioned that I had a moment of rejuvenation. And so how I came to that moment was because getting ready to have a health procedure done, and I am transitioning out of my job, and I'm moving into a space where I am working for myself. And so all of those things happening in this moment, happening in this season, have really kind of become a little overwhelming, and not to the point where I feel like I can't handle it. I knew, though, in order for me to continue handling it, I needed to check in with myself and to get regrounded. And so I I talked to God so much, so much. And I was like, listen, God, this is where I'm at, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole of being in my head and worrying and trying to orchestrate and plan, because that's not a ideal space for me to be. On one level, it may seem productive, but the zone that I get in mentally is not sustainable. I'm just like on autopilot. And so before I got there, like I asked God, I said, listen, help me to not go there, help me to see whatever is needed. And so the idea of getting away and getting some me time came about. And I love water and I love greenery. And so I was just trying to think of where to go. And so I'm in New York City, the Bronx, more specifically. And so I went to the Botanical Gardens. That was a place that I felt led to go. And I just asked God that while I was there, that He show me what it was that I needed to see. And I heard Him reply back that I needed to get in touch with celebrating me and the milestones that I had come through in life. And God knows there were many. And so I get into Botanical Gardens and I'm just kind of walking around, and the weather's kind of nice. And I'm like, nothing's really happening yet. And so I am watching Transformation Church's live thing, and I'm just kind of listening. And then what starts to happen is they get into this part of the sermon where they start giving back. And there's just like this overflow of gifts that Michael Todd has given to people. And he's just blessing people who don't even know that they're about to be blessed. He's giving away thousands, $25,000, $50,000, $100,000. And in that moment, I was so amazed. Like I was just in awe of how God works. And I was just in my own head, just in awe, thanking God and just thanking God for them and the blessings that they were getting, and just amazed at how God uses people to bless others. And it got me really emotional. I started to cry. And I found a bench and I sat down and I was like, okay, God, like I'm feeling this. What are you saying to me through this moment of emotions that I'm feeling, and this gratefulness about how amazing you are and how you orchestrate people to do something for someone else? What is it that you're telling me? And the dots kind of connected in that moment where it was like, I came to this space today to celebrate myself. And this is what God showed me. I had trouble kind of getting this whole process started, and God showed me how He uses others to bless His other people. And I started to realize that I had been checking off my boxes to get to the space where God can use me in the way that He's doing. And my graduation from high school was in the Botanical Gardens. And it hit me in that moment. It's like, this is where I crossed over into adulthood, and I really started to understand the power of my own actions. I didn't understand the power of God in me, but I did know that when I was determined, there's no stopping me. And so I started to build on that thought, and I was celebrating each moment, because what happens for me is that I can get into the space where I'm overly critical of myself. Like I am just can think about all the things that I'm not, all the things I need to work on, all the things that I need to fix and adjust, and how I need to, make myself seem worthy or what have you. And on the other side, I can just become so grateful to God for what He's doing in me. And in the middle is me. But I never quite pay attention to what it took for me to get to a space to where I can even see and hear God. That was some work. And so I reached a place where I realized that, I needed to celebrate myself. And so in that moment, I really just started thinking about how much work I had to do to get here, how in the moments where I felt like I was unseen, how I still had to push through because I knew that there was work to be done. I didn't quite have a lot of self-esteem driving me. What I had was this anger inside of me that fueled me. And this anger was basically me fighting back against all the people who had told me that I wasn't, who said I wasn't going to do, who said I couldn't, who told me all these negative things. I was fighting against that. And that was the fuel that kept me going. And then there hit a place where I realized that I had started to believe that I couldn't do and that I wasn't worthy. And so when people would come around me and I felt like I needed to fight back against this whole thing that told me that I'm less than or that I won't be able to do or all the things that I'm not, I started to realize that in pushing back against that I was also pushing back on the part of me that felt like I wasn't and I couldn't. And when I started to push back on that part of me, when I realized that there was something in me that held on to those beliefs and that also struggled with seeing the worth in myself, that's when the real work within myself began. And so that next season in my life became all about me trying to do something better for myself. And it started with my relationships and me placing boundaries on the people that I'm around and putting up boundaries because of love of me and love of them. And it was very uncomfortable to set those boundaries at first because one of the things that drives me is to help support people who come into my space to never feel alone or unseen like I did. And so I make it my business to try to show up and to try to be there. And so to have to place boundaries on people for my own good and theirs as well, it was a concept that didn't quite make sense. But I knew that there was a part of me that was calling for it and needed it. And so there was a season of me working through that and putting up boundaries and realizing that in putting up boundaries, people are not going to like it. So then you got to deal with managing your own emotions while others are showing you how they feel about your boundaries. Let me see if I can break that down in terms of what I mean. When you start to say no to people, they're not going to like it. When you start to say, hey, you know what, I don't have time. I don't have a lot of energy, or no, with money, they know you have it and you still say no to giving it. When you start putting up that boundary, people will let you know how they feel about it. And it's not always pleasant. It's oftentimes, if you struggle with placing boundaries, you are, I'd say about 85 to 90% likely to surround yourself with people who also have a similar struggle. And so when one person breaks away from the clan, they start putting up the boundaries, it can feel like a foreign thing to them. It can feel like rejection. And so they let you know, and you're stuck there trying to manage your feelings around the hardship of you even placing the boundary up to begin with, because it was hard for you, and also dealing with them being mad at you about it. Those things are really hard to do. And it can cause people to go backwards in their growth. It can cause people to say, you know what, this boundary thing is a little bit too hard. You know, they're right. They make a little bit of sense. Let me go ahead and do. And so you vacillate between trying to maintain a boundary and then showing up for someone else despite yourself. And I stayed in that season for a little while. I kept pushing through though, because what would happen is once I took that first step in trying to establish boundaries, something felt good about it. It felt a little releasing and freeing. And so I wanted more of it. And so I kept at it until that became a thing that I had down packed. And then the next lesson came. And the next lesson was me now showing up and being persistent even when I'm scared. And I was able to get there because I realized I didn't really like putting up the boundaries. It didn't feel too good. But now that I'm good on, setting boundaries, I realized that maybe I can work through fear. And I wanted to see how far I could stretch that. And so I found myself advocating for positions at work that didn't exist. Because the thing that I would tell myself is, I do a lot more work than what I'm being paid for. And there are things that I want for my own professional growth. And if it doesn't exist, then maybe I can create it. And I was nervous, scared as hell, because I'm just like, this little black chick from the Bronx, like with a public school education, a city college education, all these different things. Who's really going to listen to me when I'm having to advocate to vice presidents and whatnot? And so that's what fear told me. And through that, I still persisted. And I asked. And I got no's on some things. And then I got yeses on other things. And each yes was a moment for me. Each yes was a moment for me to keep pushing. Each yes told me that I'm not out here crazy thinking that I can do some shit that I can't get done. No, it told me, yes, you can. So keep trying. And then next thing I know, now I'm comfortable with pushing through fear. And then that brought me to the season that I'm in right now. And the chapter that I feel like I'm closing out right now, which is the place of discovering my worth and operating out of love for myself in a way that I never, ever have. For 37 years of my life, I struggled to believe that I was beautiful. I didn't like mirrors. I did not like pictures. I didn't like this. Wouldn't have done. Didn't like this. But that wasn't around all 37 years. Anyway, so that was one of the first things that started. And the way that I transitioned to that from pushing through fear was that I started to realize there's something in me that I can get things done even when I'm scared. So I said, okay, if I can do things on the external side, like ask different people outside of me for things that I feel like I want or deserve, then let me turn that inward and start looking at myself and reevaluating the way that I see myself. And it started with the way I look, with the way I'm shaped, with all those different things. And that was a journey. That was a journey. I remember I remember in therapy, my therapist was like, well, let's try this mirror exercise, because I told her this is what I wanted to do. And she's like, let's try this mirror exercise where you look at yourself in the mirror and you just give yourself some affirmations. I have therapy every other week. When I went back 2 weeks later, I was like, yeah, no, did it a day, couldn't do it. Then she's like, well, let's try just looking at your chin and then work up to your lips, then your nose and blah. Yep, made it to, I think I only made it to my chin. I think I didn't get past my chin. And so it wasn't until I was able to really call God in and say, I can't do this. And so I'm going to need you to help me see what you see. And God did. And then it kept going. From there, it was, now I can look in the mirror and see myself as beautiful. And now I want to start working on my relationships and who I allow in my space, because I need to protect this. The more that I'm building myself up, the more I need to protect it. And so I started praying that God would, this is when my earlier days where I started praying that God, whatever's for me, let it be here. Whatever's not for me, take it away. These were the early days. I wasn't that strong in my belief yet, but I did use the words. And things started happening around me that helped to strengthen my belief. I started to see things moving in terms of like my old thoughts about myself. They started to reshift. And the things that I remember people used to tell me, I started to understand how even though they said these things about me, there was always a drive in me that didn't let it come to light. I could have succumbed to the negative things that I heard, but instead, even before I fully understood God's power in my life, He helped me to fight back against it. And God, in those seasons, He used anger to help me fight back against what people said I was and wouldn't do. And then He transformed that anger into possibility of hope. And then He allowed me to exercise my audacity to believe that I could ask for something that on paper, like that people weren't even offering, that I could have easily thought wasn't available to me. And He started to show me that I can get it. And then He took that and helped me to turn it inward and start reworking the way that I saw myself. And that season lasted from 2017 till now. And the reason why I feel like this is a season that's closing out for me is because my faith has gotten stronger and stronger and stronger in that. And through my faith, I was able to see myself, get a glimpse of what I may look like to God. And to me, I see myself as this walking testimony of what God can do when you don't give up, when you look for, and I feel like give up is not the right term I'm trying to use. God, give it to me. I feel like this is a depiction. My life is a depiction of what it looks like when you say yes to God. That's a better thing. When I finally said yes to Him, when I got open and said yes, God showed me that therein lies your access to more. He held on to me in the seasons where I didn't know Him and I couldn't fully see Him. I saw Him there. That whole that poem, that footprints poem, like when they say, when you couldn't see me, when you couldn't see but one footprint, that was me carrying you. God carried me through seasons, until now. I'm at a place where He has set me down on my two legs and guides me because He knows that I'm going to walk behind Him. He knows that I'm going to follow His lead. And so now it still may be one set of footprints, but that's because I am trying to step where He guides. And this is where that season of inward reflection brought me to. This is where that season of transformation has taken me to. It's taken me to a place where I go where God will lead. And I'm still all up in the sin house because I'm not perfect. And yet God still uses me. And what God starts to do over time what He did over time with me was that, and I've heard this talked about before, but I never felt it or seen it directly in my immediate line sight. But He took my desires and shifted them so that they got closer to Him. And so now in a lot of my actions, I'm constantly thinking, how am I exercising the fruits of the Spirit? Because it's a gift that's bestowed upon me due to my faith. And that gift is not for me alone. It's for me to give to others. And that's what we really need out in these streets. We all need someone to show some kind of love and kindness from a higher source to one another. Because for us, we can only love as far as we can love ourselves. And that saying is hella true. Hella true. And I noticed that the more that I loved myself, the more that I was able to see myself, the more I was able to grow in my interactions with people. And so in the middle of this, or closer towards the end of that chapter of my life, developing my self-worth, a whole business came out of it, my coaching practice. And here I am. And now I'm moving forward in faith following God and saying, God, listen, this is where you brought me to. Use it. Use me. And let's do this work. Because I know that he's constantly trying to look out for his people. And if I can provide any ounce of support in that, if I can be used in any kind of way for that, I'm here for it. Because I'm too blessed not to allow myself to be used by God. I know where my help comes from. I know my source on an intimate level. So I'm rocking out. So in the middle of me going through what may be a breakup, I'm still sitting here grateful because of the beautiful day that I had of self-discovery and celebration of my journey. And as I get ready to cross this new threshold into my new chapter, and not just a new chapter because a new year is coming. No, this feels like a full-blown elevation for me. I am turning 40 January of 2022. I am launching my whole practice as a full-time entrepreneur in January of 2022. Like, I am starting fresh. I'm having a procedure done that is going to take away so much pain and mental agony and physical agony for me in January of 2022. This is a whole different ball game for me. And I'm going in there led by God and knowing the power of prayer and belief and faith in his actions. So this new chapter is giving me hope, and I'm resting and celebrating in that, even though I'm being challenged in an area that matters so much to me, and that is my intimate relationship. So I don't know what's going to happen with me and my man. We may not make it, and yet I still can stay in this space of being grateful because I know that God does not take anything from me to hurt me. It's just the opposite. For those that are listening, for those that came through, for those that will listen in later, thank y'all. I hope that something resonated. I hope that this was inspiring in some way. I hope that you follow me on the different social media platforms. If you are seeking individual coaching sessions, I have 2 different packages. One is the general individual coaching package, which is all about transforming the way that you see yourself to tap into all of your riches and your goodness so that way you can meet your goal, and working through barriers like realistically. Right? And when I say realistically, I mean this is all about getting to the heart of your desires and who you are and what you really will do versus what you would like to do but probably won't. Like we got to cut out what you probably won't and work with what you will do, because that being honest with yourself is one of the best gifts you can give to yourself. And that's something that I love supporting clients in coming to. Being honest with yourself and tapping into your own goodness. The other coaching program is more structured in that this is about self-discovery, taking 2 different charts, like, these studied charts, taking 2 different assessments and studying what they mean and what they say about your general actions and how you can use those general actions to support you in meeting a goal. So it's all centered around you and your natural habits, and it helps you identify them a little bit faster than the individual coaching, because some of that you would have to know. So if you don't feel that you know all of what your tendencies are, or you wonder why you do things that you do often, then I would suggest you take the whole you coaching package. Also, just stay tuned to the content. I try to show love and provide some thoughts and things to help people on their growth journey through the content that I put up. So stay tuned. On Instagram, I am posting 21 days of 21 questions to help you successfully meet a goal. So those questions, if you follow them through all the way, it is a whole roadmap by the end of day 21. So it's out there. It's free on Instagram, though. And you can find out how to follow me on those pages in the link in my bio. In the meantime, y'all, I sincerely hope that as you carry out your week, remember that even in the middle of the challenges, you can still find moments to be grateful. And even though you're grateful, please understand that you will still encounter challenges. And that is all a part of life. And God is still guiding you through it all. All right, y'all. Never stop growing. Bye.